In Gaza, devastation is still speaking louder than diplomacy. Although Donald Trump's peace plan is in action, it is taking cautious steps, and Palestinians are waiting for peace. In Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu issued a stark warning saying that Iran is preparing for intercontinental missiles. Now Tehran says this is a diversionary tactic. And in Syria, in Aleppo, clashes erupted between the government troops and the Kurdish forces. They started gun battles. Now a ceasefire is in place, but still it's not definite. All this is lined up, but first, the headlines. Into Gaza war, 2 years of airstrikes, destruction, 2 years of starvation, siege, 2 years of displacement. The Palestinians in Gaza have endured the unendurable. The next reports shed the light about this.
In October 2023, the bombing of Gaza began. Two years later, at least 67,000 people have been killed. More than 20,000 of them are children, a child killed every hour for 24 months. The true toll is likely higher, with bodies still beneath the ruins. The law's hardest words are now on the record. UN human rights experts warned of an unfolding genocide. In May 2025 and on September 16, 2025, the UN's Independent Commission of Inquiry concluded Israel has committed genocide in Gaza.
We returned to where we used to live on the basis that the places still exist. We are searching to find at least a mattress or pillow because winter is coming. I think I will not find anything. With this extent of destruction, we will not find anything.
The survivors are living with wounds that might never heal. According to Gaza's health ministry, more than 169,000 people have been injured, many with permanent disabilities. UNICEF estimates 3,000 to 4,000 children have lost limbs. Images of parents holding their headless child, children carrying remains of their siblings in a school bag, all images that have horrified the world.
When I was informed in the morning that my home was gone, I did not know what to do. If I should, I cry or what? I was crying for my siblings who I lost. How can I come back and not find them waiting for me?
Hospitals, which should have been safe, have been bombarded. According to OCHA and World Health Organization, 125 health facilities damaged, 34 hospitals hit, and 1,722 health and aid workers killed. Dozens of doctors, including senior surgeons and anesthesiologists, are being held without charge, languishing in Israeli prisons, some for more than 600 days. Rome Statute and the Geneva Conventions clearly state that. In a battlefield, hospitals and medical personnel are protected. But in Gaza, Israel's carpet bombing with no regard for international law has shredded these protections. Experts say the hunger in Gaza is not an accident, it is engineered. Blocked aid and restricted access have turned a 16-year siege into a full-blown famine. According to WHO, 459 people, including 154 children, have died from war-induced starvation. From being a lifeline, aid became a trap. Gaza's health ministry says, since May, after the handover to US-led GHF, more than 2,600 people have been killed while trying to collect food. One Israeli soldier on record called it a killing field. Testimonies from the front lines are consistent. MSF and the Red Cross describe patients arriving with gunshot wounds, many to the upper body after trying to reach aid. The war has been termed the deadliest for journalists. Nearly 300 journalists have been killed, more than in any other conflict of the modern era. Foreign media barred from entering Gaza, and Palestinian journalists targeted for 2 years. UN experts call it a systematic campaign to silence witnesses. In South Africa's ICC case against Israel, lawyers said that Palestinians are the first people to live stream their own genocide on social media. 2 years into this war, what remains is a strangled enclave, a devastated population, a people who barely recovered from the first Nakba. 75 years ago, going through another, and still they remain stateless.
Let's start with Gaza. The peace plan is really cautious. There's a lack of trust between the global community and the Palestinians. They are hoping for a change and for peace. But the devastation is still there, and little change is in action. We tell you more in this report.
It's being described as the most significant breakthrough in months. A new phased-out ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas, backed by the US, has entered its first phase. On October 9th, Israel's cabinet approved the US-brokered plan, paving the way for a suspension of hostilities across the Gaza Strip. Israeli troops have pulled back to agreed-upon deployment lines. The move is part of the initial steps agreed to in Egypt, where Phase 1 of the deal was officially agreed upon with mediation from the US, Egypt, Qatar and Turkey. Under the terms made public, fighting is set to halt within 24 hours of the approval. Hamas is required to release all remaining living hostages within 72 hours in exchange for Israel, freeing Palestinian prisoners and partial withdrawal. As a delicate ceasefire unfolds, humanitarian agencies are racing to scale up operations. The UN prepares to reach more than 2 million civilians with food and medical supplies, among other requirements. Aid groups say even the most carefully drafted deal can unravel if checkpoints and supply lines remain choked. The US has also confirmed a small troop deployment of 200 inside Gaza, not for combat, but to coordinate humanitarian and monitoring efforts during the truce. The ceasefire is taking hold for now, but its future is uncertain. Major fault lines are already visible, which could potentially derail the peace process ahead. The first sticking point is the hostage-prisoner exchange itself. Hamas is demanding the release of high-profile Palestinian prisoners, including Marwan Barghouti, a demand Israel continues to resist. The group has also demanded the bodies of Sinwar brothers killed by Israel earlier this year. Then there's the question of withdrawal. Israel wants to maintain security control over strategic corridors and buffer zones. Hamas, on the other hand, insists on a full and unconditional pullout. Another core dispute is Hamas disarmament. Israel and its allies want Hamas to give up its military infrastructure as part of any permanent deal. Hamas argues it cannot disarm without political guarantees, fearing it would be left vulnerable. For now, Hamas leaders say that US has guaranteed an indefinite end to the war in Gaza, but its own future is unknown. The biggest contention is of governance. Who runs Gaza after the war is truly over. Israel wants to keep Hamas out of power. Hamas refuses to hand over control without securing its political goals and Palestinian presence. Mediators have floated options, including transitional international oversight, but there is resistance against a West-led panel with no serious Palestinian say. Nothing is locked in. And at the heart of it all is the question of guarantees. Who enforces this ceasefire if it's breached? How will global community ensure that Israel will not resume carpet bombing once all hostages will be back home? For many watching this unfold, the script feels painfully familiar. Earlier this year, in January, a similar ceasefire agreement was struck. It too began with a phased truce, hostage and prisoner exchanges, and promised Israeli withdrawals. But by mid-March, the deal had collapsed under the weight of broken promises and mistrust. Back then, Israel delayed prisoner releases. Hamas halted hostage handovers. Israeli forces never fully withdrew from key corridors. Aid remained bottlenecked, and in mid-March, Israeli strikes effectively ended the truce. Those same fault lines, hostages, withdrawals, disarmament, governance, aid and enforcement are again at the center of this new deal. What's different this time, negotiators say, is a heavier international presence and stronger monitoring mechanisms. But history has always told a different story. After repeated failures by the global community, will their oversight be enough to hold this truce now?
A stark warning by Benjamin Netanyahu. He says that Iran is working and racing towards intercontinental missiles, ballistic missiles. Now Iran calls this a diversionary tactic. But this all says that the fear is rising in the region of a new round of war between these two. The next report tells you more.
The clock is ticking. Israel's Prime Minister sounds alarm on Iran's missile ambitions, claiming Tehran's arsenal could soon reach intercontinental range. Netanyahu claims that Iran is developing intercontinental ballistic missiles with 8,000-kilometer range, weapons capable of striking New York and Washington. But how close is Iran to possessing an actual ICBM? Well, Iran has developed a potent fleet of intermediate-range ballistic missiles. Systems like the Khorramshahr and Imad can reach targets across much of West Asia, reaching Israel's borders with destructive capability. Yet, shifting from IRBMs to true intercontinental ballistic missiles remains a formidable leap. It requires advanced propulsion, guidance, and re-entry technology. Iran's space launch vehicles demonstrate some of these capabilities. Their Simorgh and Zul'Jana rockets have placed satellites into orbit, signaling strides in multi-stage rocketry. However, transforming SLVs into weaponized ICBMs that can strike targets thousands of kilometers away with pinpoint accuracy demands complex technological breakthroughs. Iran insists its nuclear and missile programs are defensive, aimed at countering threats from hostile neighbors. Netanyahu's ICBM warnings arrive as diplomacy stalls and tension escalates. Whether genuine intelligence or strategic manipulation, the claim serves Israeli interests, keeping Washington engaged, sanctions tight, military options open. Despite the ceasefire forged in mid-2025, distrust runs deep. Proxy groups supported by Iran continue to operate aggressively across the region. While Israel remains vigilant, prepared to act decisively against perceived threats. Both sides view the conflict through existential lenses. Israel sees Iran's accelerating nuclear program and missile capacity as an immediate danger, while Iran perceives itself under siege from relentless covert and overt attacks. In this volatile game of missiles and diplomacy, every move ripples far beyond West Asia's borders. Bureau Report WION. World is one.
Israel is under fire. The Yemeni Houthi Ansarullah missiles and drones are stretching Israel's air defense. A high alert and intense barrage took Eilat by storm. We tell you more.
Tensions escalated in Israel's south when 4 Houthi drones were intercepted near Eilat within a single hour. It is one of the most concentrated attacks from the Houthi rebels in weeks. The Israeli military confirmed there were no injuries, but acknowledged gaps in its air defense response. Within hours, bomb shelters were deployed across Eilat's public spaces, a city now living under a heightened state of alert. This escalation comes after a string of similar strikes. Almost 3 weeks ago, a Houthi drone struck the entrance of a hotel in Eilat, damaging the site but causing no casualties. Before that, another drone slammed into Eilat Ramon Airport, lightly wounding 1 person. Both instances revealed glaring gaps in Israel's air defense, including a critical human error that led to the drone being misclassified as a non-threat. The threat from the Houthis is persistent and goes back years. Just last week, the group warned that it could strike American oil companies in what they called retaliatory actions against US interests. The message is a signal that their war isn't limited to Israel alone. For months, the Houthis have been launching missiles and drones thousands of kilometers towards Israel, calling it an act of solidarity with the Palestinians amid the Gaza war. The scale of attacks is rising fast. The Houthis have so far fired dozens of drones and nearly 100 ballistic missiles at Israel. Most have been intercepted or have fallen short, but the volume is pushing Israel's defense systems to their limit. Israel has responded with force. Since July 2024, it has carried out 19 major strikes on Yemeni soil. One of them, a high-profile strike on Sana'a, which killed the Houthi Prime Minister and several senior ministers. But far from backing down, the rebels have only intensified their war. There's another flashpoint. The Houthis have detained 9 United Nations employees, bringing the total number of detained UN staff in Yemen to 53 since 2021. The UN has condemned the arbitrary arrest, warning that its humanitarian operations in Houthi-controlled areas have been severely disrupted. In August, 19 workers were detained. Earlier this year, operations were suspended in Sada after further arrests. From drone strikes over Eilat to threats against US interests to detentions of UN staff, the Houthis are broadening their battlefield, and the Red Sea remains the region's flashpoint.
Let's go to Syria, to Aleppo, one of the oldest cities inhabited in the world. A city long scarred by war faces a new round of clashes. It is the most intense clashes since the fall of Bashar al-Assad. Government troops, gunfires exchanged with the Kurdish forces. Now a ceasefire is in place, but it is very cautious. We tell you more.
In a city that once stood at the heart of Syria's bloody civil war, the guns roared once again. Aleppo, Syria's second-largest city, witnessed deadly clashes between government forces and the Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces, laying bare a deepening power struggle. The fighting erupted on the night of 6th September in 2 heavily Kurdish neighborhoods of Ashrafiyeh and Sheikh Maqsoud, a sharp front line that divides government-controlled territory and Kurdish-held areas. According to state media, by dawn, at least 1 soldier and 1 civilian were dead. The governor insisted there was no intention of escalation, but the bloodshed had already sent a chill through a country already fractured by violence. By the morning of 7th September, Defense Minister Murhaf Abu Kasra announced a ceasefire. Following emergency talks with Kurdish commander Mazloum Abdi, the deal promises a comprehensive halt to fighting across northern and northeastern Syria.
A while ago, I met with Mr. Mazloum Abdi in the capital, Damascus, and we agreed to a comprehensive ceasefire on all fronts and military deployment points in northern and northeastern Syria, with implementation of this agreement to begin immediately.
But this is far from just a local clash. The Kurdish-led forces have long operated outside government control, and their relationship with Damascus has grown more fractious in recent months. The new Syrian president, Ahmed al-Shara, is under mounting pressure, accused of failing to stem violence in multiple minority regions. Washington, too, is watching closely. Kurdish commander Mazloum Abdi, a longtime US ally against its fight against ISIS, met senior American officials this week. They later traveled to Damascus for talks with the president. The 2 sides signed a deal earlier this year to merge the Kurdish-led forces into the National Syrian Army, but implementation has stalled. And this latest outbreak shows just how volatile that stalemate has become. And all of this is unfolding amid a new political landscape. Syria just held its first parliamentary elections in the post-Assad era. But the Kurdish region, still outside government control, was left out of the vote entirely, deepening the political rift between Damascus and the northeast. For now, the guns have fallen silent in Syria, but under the surface, a battle over power,
territory and identity is still raging.
Now let's take a look at what other news is making the headlines across West Asia.
Turkey could meet over half its gas needs domestically and through U.S. imports by 2028, a move that could sharply cut its reliance on Russian and Iranian energy. The shift follows U.S. pressure on Ankara to reduce energy ties with Moscow and Tehran. Russia's long-term pipeline contracts with Turkey are nearing expiry, and while some may be renewed, Ankara is seeking smaller, more flexible deals as it ramps up domestic production and LNG imports. U.S. LNG purchases are set to double, backed by $43 billion in new deals, including a major 20-year agreement with Mercuria. Analysts say this could make Turkey a key regional gas hub, re-exporting LNG to Europe while using Russian and Iranian gas at home as Europe phases out Russian energy by 2028. Syria's electoral authority has declared official results for two-thirds of the seats in the new People's Assembly, the country's first parliamentary elections since the fall of the Bashar al-Assad regime. Spokesman Nawar Najmeh said President Ahmed al-Shara will appoint the remaining third of members, pledging a critical and revolutionary parliament. Officials acknowledged poor representation of women and Christians but said the vote was fair. 21 seats remain vacant in Sweda, Raqqa, and Hasaka, with follow-up elections expected under the March 10th SDF integration agreement. The new assembly marks a key step in Syria's post-Assad political transition. Saudi Arabia is cementing its place as a global gaming superpower after its $1 trillion public investment fund led a $55 billion deal to buy Electronic Arts, home to FIFA, The Sims, and Madden. The move crowns a massive push by the kingdom to diversify beyond oil and dominate the gaming world. Through its arms-savvy games, Saudi Arabia has poured $38 billion into global studios, snapping up Scopely, Niantic's gaming arm, and major stakes in Nintendo, Capcom, and Take-It-Wo. Alongside, Ubisoft's Assassin's Creed will soon feature Saudi missions set in Al-Ula. Riyadh now controls 40% of the esports market and hosts the Esports World Cup, part of Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman's Vision 2030 drive to turn Saudi Arabia into a global gaming hub.
That's all we have for you on this episode of the West Asia Post. I will see you next week with a brand new lineup, always bringing you the most recent updates, news, and ground reports from the world's most volatile region. I'm your host, Radi Francis, signing off from South Lebanon, and you're watching WION World is One.